Kennewick Man is the name for the skeletal remains of a prehistoric man found on a bank of the Columbia River in Kennewick, Washington, USA, on July 28, 1996. It is one of the most complete ancient skeletons ever found. On July 28, 1996, two men at Columbia Park in Kennewick, Washington, accidentally found part of a human skull on the bottom of the Columbia River about 10 feet from shore. I believe that the Native American groups have a stronger claim to Kennewick Man's remains. I believed that the Native Americans have the right to the remains and spiritual connection to the land. First reason why I believe that the Kennewick Man belongs to the Native Americans is origin stories of the first Americans. A handful of scholars still believe that the first settlers crossed oceans to arrive in the Americas. Some theorize that late Ice Age hunter-gatherers from Western Europe traveled by canoe along northern coastlines and ice sheets to North America. But Indians believe that is the story, they were the first settlers here. Conventional wisdom says that Native Americans descended from prehistoric hunters who walked from Northeast Asia across a land bridge, formed at the end of the Ice Age, to Alaska some 12,000 years ago. In the 1930s, archaeologists found stone spear points among the bones of mammoths near Clovis, New Mexico. Radiocarbon dating in the 1950s showed that the oldest site was 11,400 years old. The sites were assumed, for years, to be the first evidence of human occupation in the Americas. Second reason why I believe that the Kennewick Man belongs to the Native Americans is social evolution and cultural assimilation. The cultural assimilation of Native Americans was an assimilation effort by the United States to transform Native American culture to European American culture between the years of 1790 to 1920. Americanization policies were based on the idea that when indigenous people learned United States, American, customs and values, they would be able to merge tribal traditions with American culture and peacefully join the majority of the society. After the end of the Indian Wars, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the government outlawed the practice of traditional religious ceremonies. It established Native American boarding schools which children were required to attend. In these schools they were forced to speak English, study standard subjects, attend church, and leave tribal traditions behind. Pratt pioneered to transform Indians into white people subsequent Indian boarding schools. In the boarding school Pratt trimmed their hair, required them to speak English, and prohibited any displays of tribal traditions, such as Indian clothing, dancing, or religious ceremonies. The Dawes Act of 1887, which allotted tribal lands and severally to individuals, was seen as a way to create individual homesteads for Native Americans. Land allotments were made in exchange for Native Americans becoming U.S. citizens and giving up some forms of tribal self-government and institutions. It resulted in the transfer of an estimated total of 93 million acres, 380,000 square kilometers, from Native American control. Most was sold to individuals or given out free through the Homestead Law, or given directly to Indians as individuals. In conclusion, I believe that the Kennewick Man is buried where it's supposed to be buried.